Hey folks, Jason Turner here with ZenTheCar.com. I'm over here on our page, and I'd written an article here. It's called "Domestic Terrorist: What's Its Origin?" Back in May. If you look here, it's May 9th, 2014. What I wanted to do was go over some of this, since we just got finished celebrating the 4th of July and America's independence. It's kind of telling when you start getting deep into what the NDAA of 2012 offered, the AUMF of, 2002, which is the authorization for use of military force. I go into that down here at the bottom here, where it come from, what started it, Black's Law Dictionary's definition of the word affirm, which Congress had used in the 2012 NDAA in sections 1021, 1022. Basically, when the AUMF was created, the president had the authority to unlawfully detain an American citizen indefinitely. In 2012, however, Congress created this massive bill, the NDAA. In that bill, in sections 1021 and 1022, and I'm just going to read from my article here, is where we run into the counterterrorism sections of the bill, Title X, Subtitle D. Within this is the authorization for the indefinite detention of persons the government suspects of involvement in terrorism, including U.S. citizens on American soil. Now, the NDAA states, or stated, should I say, it no longer states this, that Congress affirms the authority to make specific provisions as to the exercise of that authority. Your definition of affirm and Black's Law Dictionary definition of affirm are radically different. Anytime you read a bill that has been put out by Congress, you need to always read out of Black's Law Dictionary. Why? Because it's law. You read out of Webster's, they read out of Black's Law. You see here that Black's Law Dictionary is the definition of affirm is literally a paragraph long. In Webster's dictionary, it's 2 sentences. All right. Anyway, moving on. What happened? Congress vested the power in themselves to bypass the 4th Amendment of the United States Constitution and took the power from the president and affirmed it to themselves. It just baffles my mind that Congress, the people we vote to represent us in Congress, somehow think that they can just vest the power in themselves to arrest an individual without due process of the law. As John McCain, Lindsey Graham stated that, Lindsey Graham in particular stated that when we ask for a lawyer, you tell them, shut up. Look, dude, you're not a master. It's ridiculous. So where do they come up with who's who to determine in the FISA courts what a terrorist is? Well, the Department of Homeland Security contracted with the University of Maryland to define what a domestic terrorist is. And it's through the National Consortium of the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism, the S.T.A.R.T program. It was partly funded by the DHS. Now, if you look here on pages 9 and 10, the definition of particular groups are mentioned here in my article. Extreme right wing, extreme left wing, religious. It just goes on and on and on about who a domestic terrorist could be considered. This here is the scariest of them all, because they named everybody here, you know, Nazis, and you have people who think they're Nazis, and they're religious people, left wing, right wing. But the single issue group or individuals, this should scare the living hell out of everyone, because if you are a anti-abortion, anti-Catholic, anti-nuclear, anti-Castro, hell, anti-government, according to that law, you were considered a domestic terrorist in the eyes of the government. Therefore, everybody in this nation is considered a domestic terrorist. Why? Because they listed everyone else, the extreme right, extreme left, religious, blah, 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 separatists. You know, it's like, and then the single issue, that's just a vague way of saying everyone else. Now in this, I went after Paul Brown because Paul Brown was, you know, throwing up during the debates and during the election process. He was throwing up that he was the most conservative person on the whatever, dude. You voted for it in 2012. You didn't vote for it in 2014. Now you voted for it again in 2015. And it now the new NDAA. It currently upholds current law, which is the AUMF, of course, which was created under Bush to unlawfully detain a citizen. So Congress gave the power back to the president to determine who is or isn't a domestic terrorist. So we're still playing the left-right. I didn't do it. They did it. Shenanigans. And what I like to call doublespeak in Washington, and I put it in here as a doublespeak. It's just stop and think for a minute. You know, how free are we, where our own government could sit here and say that you can unlawfully detain an American citizen without due process of the law, meaning. You don't get a jury trial. You don't. The preponderance of evidence is not. It does not have to be presented to you. They don't even have to tell you why they arrested you. What the hell has America come to? When do we say enough is enough? You know, I don't like to think that my service to this country for 10 years was totally in vain, but the longer I sit here and look at it, I was part of a bigger picture that just was not what America is about. You know, I did 3 deployments in Iraq. For what? As George Bush so eloquently put it at the dinner, the White House dinner, is WMDs, they gotta be somewhere. Dude, when you said that, you slapped every fucking service member right in the face. Why? Because you took us to Iraq under the guise of there were weapons of mass destruction. You lied to the American people, told them there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Did we ever find them? No. Why? Because they never freaking existed to begin with. America, you got a choice to make. You really do. You really, really, really do. Because we now have a government that isn't of the people, by the people, and for the people. You know, the Declaration of Independence, the redress of government, the right of the people to overthrow and change the government. That's looking like something that is becoming more and more of a realistic idea that may need to happen in the very near future. Where do you stand?